Hello. Well, um, I write Fallout Equestria fan fiction. Other than that, I do write a couple other different things. I'm actually currently working on a original novel to kind of finish off some stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I am the author of Fallout Equestria Starlight, as well as the author of a story called Fallout Equestria Mending Hearts, which is a kind of a pseudo sequel to Starlight. Like, what do you want to know? Like, Fallout Equestria Starlight is about an alicorn named Radiant Star. She kind of has this thing where she kind of ends up looking a lot like Twilight Sparkle, and she ends up going to try and find out exactly why that happens. That sort of thing ends up in a big hullabaloo of adventure, and yeah, that's pretty much it for her. Mending Hearts takes place several years after Starlight does. It has to deal with the kids of one of the characters in the from Starlight, and how they end up growing up, that sort of thing. Like, do you mean like specifically, or just like just like a high level overview? I mean, Star kind of ends up looking like Twilight. She goes off, finds out that there's this something had changed her. She uh, ends up in a city called Chicago, and goes through this whole big adventure. Finds out that the um, big bad of the story is really the corrupted element of magic. And so she ends up chasing her all the way back across Equestria to the Everfree Forest, where I can't really reveal like the ending if people haven't read it, because spoilers. There's a very good twist at the end, and you see it coming, but I can't really like put that out there without people for people who haven't actually read the story. Yeah, I've done a lot of work on what I've done. What's has been nice about what I've done is that it's certainly helped me grow as a writer. And Yeah, it's fan fiction, but I have learned a lot in writing style, pacing, characters, stuff that I'm currently translating as best as I can that I've learned over to the original piece of fiction that I'm now currently working on. Change anything about them? You kind of dropped out there for a second. Yeah, I think anybody would. There's things that I would go back and change if I actually had the time to go change them, but I don't. So that's kind of the big thing about it. Like, I don't really have the time to go back to do all that stuff. There's some things in the early chapters I would change: pacing, character development, stuff like that, that I would totally change. But right now, it's just not even feasible, especially not since the book does actually exist in print form. I would not be able to do it anyways. No, I actually um soft cover print. So what I do is I actually do self printings for patrons of my Patreon, and that's all, and it's all at cost. So I don't make any money off of that. It's all strictly to people who support my work. No, not really. It's just the people who are supporting me through Patreon currently. Yes. I back to my patrons because, as anybody will ever ask me and ever knows me, I am a very big on giving back to my patrons as much as possible. I also do not monthly, but uh, try to do quarterly giveaways of books to one of my patrons so that they can get books without having to buy them, that sort of thing. That's kind of the whole point of Patreon. Like that's the entire point of Patreon, is that you are providing rewards back to your patrons. Of my particular story, yes. I'm not the only one who has had books printed. The Followed Equestria print team has printed Pink Eyes before. So I don't think if they're okay with it, then I don't think anybody's going to worry about it. Yes. Right. About what question? About other people printing? I don't get anything in profit. Not at all. I turn everything back into my patrons. Yeah, I don't get anything in profit from this. I turn everything back into my patrons, and then give them away back to them. Sorry. Yeah, I don't make any real money off of this. Like, this is just to support my work. It's a perk of being able to get things kind of early. They get to see content a little bit earlier than most other people. As you will ask any of my patrons, I bend over backwards for those guys. They have been supporting me for a very long time. Some of them very long time, and I just try to do as much as I can to give back to them. Uh, no, not really. Eventually, yes. Again, spoilers. What's that? Not really. The other than the original. That's it. That's the only one. That's the only thing I consider to be canon is the original story. Correct. So basically, that story kind of was born out of the idea that I wanted to do something with those characters. It's a little bit more than I felt I could do with them. And so basically, it's kind of a coming of age story. The two kids, the twins, end up having to leave their home because their mother has a heart condition, and they're going off to go find somebody that can possibly help her save her life. And so they end up leaving Equestria to go try and find this other character, even though they don't really know that this character actually exists. They're just following conjecture and legend to try and find this character. When they eventually do find them, but the unfortunateness of it is that when they do find them, they find out that they really don't have the ability that they're really looking for to actually save their mother. But then there is a bit of time travel shenanigans that gets thrown in towards the end concerning the Crystal Empire's return and a couple other different things that happen towards the end of the story. So, uh, I don't know what your story is, so I apologize. I don't get to read too many. Uh, uh, I understand that. I There was a time where I felt like I wasn't going to get anywhere with it with what I was working on. My mending hearts, especially, sat for shoot almost a year. I want to say like 6 months or so before I finally was like, I really need to go back and finish this. And so let's do this. Let's get it done. Get it out of the way because it needs to get finished, and it did. But there was a time where I was like, yeah, I don't really want to work on this right now. And that was when I was trying to really start working super hard on my original novel. And so that's kind of like the big thing right now that I'm working on. Yeah, that's a bit long. I think it's time you find another thing to look at to work on at that point. From a writer's perspective, if you're beating your head against the wall so much on something like that, you best thing to do at that point is to shift gears and start working on something else. Simply because it will help your brain focus a little bit better on the writing aspect of it. I have had a lot of issues with my original piece of fiction, just simply because it's a lot harder to actually come up with everything all by yourself than it is to have like a baseline like you have in fan fiction. So therefore, like my jaunt back into fan fiction actually is largely to do with the fact that I've hit like little walls and writer's block walls with my original fiction, to be like try and stretch my brain a little bit, put myself out of my comfort zone, try and write something a little bit different. That way, when I come back to the original fiction, I go, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm supposed to be at for this coming section of the book. Hey, I can write again. Like, so that sort of thing. If you spend all your time spinning wheels on stuff, you're never going to get anywhere. You just got to kind of write. And that's really kind of like the best advice I can give to anybody is just write. Did I lose you? Hello. Okay. Is that all, or do you have another question, or what's that? I still didn't quite catch that. I think you cut out. Oh, okay. Oh, did it not get you that entire time? Okay, that's fine. About writing? Talking about writing and how, if you're beating your head against the wall on something, try something different, work on something else. That helps a lot with the writing aspect of being able to just write. If you do other stuff, you're just going to find yourself in a position where you can do a bunch of different things. And once you go back to your original thing that was giving you the trouble, then maybe it's not so bad and it gives you a little bit of a fresh start on it. It gives your brain a break from that. I do writing as a living, basically. I write a lot of. I do technical writing as well as I do a lot of nonfiction writing. So I get a lot of different things to look at, and so it gets helps me with my fiction writing just because I keep my brain fresh because I'm always switching gears. Is everything okay? Hello, ring, 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 banana phone. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I cannot hear you. No. I cannot hear you at all if you're talking. Can you hear me now? Hello, I can hear you. Technical difficulties? Okay. All right. Up until you said yes, no. Okay. I don't have much time to read anything right now. Unfortunately, I can't even read anybody else's followed Equestria fix right now. I just don't have time. I just don't have time. I don't even have time to. I could try, yeah. Before I didn't have time to do anything. Um, let's see here. Obviously I've read FOE. A lot of my run of my stuff has been FOE. Like I've read all of Murky number 7. I've read obviously Pink Eyes. Pink Eyes is the first followed Equestria side fic I ever read. Um, there's like little stories like Duck and Cover that I've read that I loved a lot. Make Love Not War is also in that too. It's pretty good. Um, Heroes is one of my big favorites. A lot of people have problems getting into it first because the beginning of the story is just absolutely difficult as heck to get into. But I love No One to Death. I talk to him quite a bit. He's a nice guy, and I do like his story a lot. So just like the big stuff for the most part. I have not to this day ever actually finished Project Horizons, just simply because I just can't. It's fine. It's a great story. It's just not for me. Oh, okay. I got into with at Project Horizons. Actually, it was probably a little bit after the chapter where Blackjack dies for the first time on the boat. Ooh, I am talking. Hello. Oh, okay. Do you need me to repeat what I just said? Yeah. So Project Horizons, I got into that. It was the last chapter I read of that before I stopped reading was a little bit after the first chapter where Balakjek dies for the first time, which is the boat chapter. So I love Somber to death. I do like the guy. I have had somewhat positive interaction with him in the past. He and I have talked often enough. Actually, one of his editors, Heartshine, edits for me as well on occasion. So I kind of have that kind of connection to talk to him about. So he's always been kind of a nice guy to me. But I always kind of felt that he could have ended it right then and there on the boat and just kind of mic dropped. And it probably would have been really, really intriguing for him to do that. Just leave all of like the plot lines that he had left kind of wide open, just leave them wide open and just kind of be like, she's dead, end. And I think that would have made it a little bit more interesting to me, at least. But I mean, for what he's done, I mean, I would be proud of it too. It's not for me, but I can see why people do like it. And I mean, props to those people that have finished it because holy cow, it's a lot of words. It's pretty ridiculously long. Yeah. And that's coming from my standards of the fact that I wrote 650,000 words of fan fiction, and his, obviously dwarfs mine by a country mile. So sure, that's a lot of words. So the thing I have to say about that is that if you're writing to length, you're doing it wrong. And I found this out very, 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 very early on. Starlight was never supposed to be 650,000 words, but that's just how it ended up. But I often did write to length, like, oh, I got to be at this many words for this chapter. Uh, and then I realized later on down the line that I was doing that for the wrong reasons. And that's actually a very, very wrong thing to do. What you really need to do is you just write as long as the chapter is supposed to be. And so you're like, oh, the chapter's supposed to end here. And when I get there, then that's when the chapter ends. And I know how the chapter ends because I went and I wrote a little bit of how the chapter ends first, and then I wrote to that. So it's like one of those adages that you always hear guys like Stephen King and stuff say. You envision the ending first, and then you write to the ending, so that you know where you're going, at least with the story. So it's kind of one of those things. Now I know, you know, Somber kind of just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. I'm sure he had an ending in mind, but I don't know that it was the ending that he wrote. So it's kind of unfortunate. Like, even though I've never read it all, I am well what how it ends at least. It's because I should be at least. That way, if somebody asks me, hey, do you know how this ended? And, yeah, I know how it ended. I didn't read it, but I know how it ended. So I would have. I would have so much. Honestly, like the thing is about that was like if he'd have done that, just went, hey, you know, dead. She's dead. Like that's it. Story's over. She's dead. The end. Now everybody goes, but what about this? And what about that? What happened to the program? What happened to blah 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 blah? What happened to Glory? How's she dealing with that? Like that would just be great. Like they'd be like, oh, and then he could take that and go start on something else and kind of like continue it in another fashion of, hey, now these guys are going off and doing this because she's dead. And now this is the main character you're following. And it would just been like, or, like he could have been like, hey, she's just dead. We're done. The end. Like, do what? No, I don't care. I know what happens. What, like that? What do you mean? Like towards the end? Like, I know that she ends up as like some immortal crazy thing, and they all think she's dead because blah 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 blah, but she's wandering around because she's immortal in some other body or something like that. I know the basic gist. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually think I read like the epilogue just because I was curious. Mm, I heard about that. I heard about that. I heard about that. Oh, yeah. I didn't really. Yep. Yeah, I could kind of see that. Pink Eyes? Yeah, it was a pretty good story. I mean, I was tied to Star pretty easily because Star's kind of like this goofy little like crazy woman that I created, and like I love her to death because she's just one of these characters where like I'm just a complete utter ditz sometimes, and then as you go through the story, she kind of grows up a lot and she learns how to be better and how to do things a little bit better, and she's not as stupid and not as ditzy. And not as silly because she's learning and growing and developing. Uh, but yeah, her I was pretty attached to her, and I mean obviously she survives, but about the only character that dies, spoiler, and I'm sure a lot of people will know this by now, is the character of Steeljack. And honestly, like it didn't really bother me that much, only because I really could have developed him a lot better by that point. And that was one of the regret things about that story was he kind of died, and it didn't really make a big deal about it until I wrote Mending Hearts, which actually made a bigger deal about it. So, uh, like honestly, like out of that realm of area, Murky number seven is like my utter favorite. Just simply because I really, really enjoyed the concept. I really, really enjoyed how he was very eloquent with his words and really made a very interesting, painted a very interesting story. I would have to say, most assuredly, spoilers, obviously, if anybody hasn't read Murky number seven, you probably should because Protege in that story is probably one of my more favorite characters, and he does unfortunately not make it to the end of the story, but it's a very interesting story. I like how uh, gritty it is without being so dark, like how Project Horizons could be sometimes. I like how it's dark, but there's still that bit of the Fallout message within that. And the Fallout message is obviously that, even though, it seems like there's no hope and everything is really, really crappy and everything sucks, that there's still some light within the wasteland. There's still some way of getting back to civilization, to humanity. And that's, I mean, it's one of the big reasons why I like Fallout so much is because, I like that message, and I like how those games, position you to kind of be that light and kind of be that person that helps save people and that sort of thing. Um, I like Heroes a lot. I think more people should read Heroes. I know it's obviously considered one of the big five or whatever you want to call it. But I like the story quite a bit. I wish no one would get off his ass and just finish the damn thing. But he's working on it. At least I know. But there's a character in there. I've always been partial to the Alicorns because I like the Alicorns as a parallel from Fallout as the super mutants from Fallout. And I always found from Fallout 1, the Master, to be a very interesting character, just simply because it's, there's just this normal guy who, fell into a vat of irradiated chemicals and became something else, something more, something bigger. And so I've always been a big fan of the Alicorns. And Heroes has an Alicorn named Platinum Haze that I've always been really fond of. She's a very interesting character. It kind of hits my jive with how I created Star, which Star's kind of a similar kind of character in the regards to that they're kind of really both kind of funny, and they both kind of have their things that they do because they're alicorns, and so that's kind of what I like about that. It's just always been a part of the story that I've always really enjoyed. No, not really. Yeah, no, not really. I mean, if you look at what happens in the end of Fall Equestria, some of the alicorns are not, particularly dumb brutes, and a lot of the ones that aren't connected to the goddess aren't really that dumb. So I just said to me that, hey, personality wise, yeah, they may be, some of them may end up, being, a little silly, a little stupid, but a lot of them probably end up being kind of intelligent because, they have, you know, had this connection of intelligence for so long. Because if you look at so a lot of people's exposure to uh, the super mutants in Fallout generally is related to the super mutants from games like Fallout 3. And um, so in Fallout 3, the super mutants in Fallout 3 are from Vault 87. And yeah, they're kind of dumb. They're all really stupid because there was nothing guiding them as they came out of that vault. There was no intelligence, no higher purpose. But if you go back to Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, in Fallout 1, you had the Master, which is obviously the allegory in Fallout Equestria, the allegory to the Master is the goddess. The Master is intelligent. He's ruthless. He's cruel. He's calculating. And the super mutants that he created were intelligent. They were smart. They could form armies. They could form, an actual fighting force that could take over the wasteland. And that's why they're the big threat of Fallout 1. You have to go defeat the Master in order to before the time runs out, so that the super mutants don't go take over the world. But so when you get to Fallout 2, and you get to kind of find out in Fallout 2 what happens to some of the super mutants that used to be part of Unity with the Master. And one of those super mutants, if anybody has ever played New Vegas, shows up again in New Vegas. Super mutant by the name of Marcus. And Marcus ends up after Fallout 1, he ends up a player companion in Fallout 2, where he's running a town that is comprised of, yeah, yep, running a town is comprised of super mutants, ghouls, humans, also, and they're all living together and happy. And Marcus is the most well-spoken guy in practically the entire game. You talk to him and he's like, "Hey, how's it going, man? Like, what's up?" And he's like really smart and stuff. You find him in Fallout New Vegas, and he's running the town for the super mutants in the New Vegas area, and and he's helping the Nightkin and all that stuff. And he's like the most well-spoken super mutant you've ever met. He's very eloquent, and he for what his vocal cords can do. And so it's like it doesn't make sense to me that if you know this isn't a true you know translation from Fallout Equestria to Fallout, they are still equestrians. They are still ponies. So it stands to reason that they would have some personality, even if right after the goddess's death, that they're maybe a little wooden, little not able to understand what's going on because the thing that had been binding them together for centuries, possibly has been suddenly ripped away from their lives. So yeah, they gotta have personality. There's be stupid if they didn't. You know. Yeah, it's mostly because, uh, the master exerts his influence, upon those he wishes to use at any given moment. But I don't think that they're all like that. Again, Marcus is kind of proof that they're not all like stupid, stupid, stupid. Oh, Virgil. Yeah, Virgil. Yeah. He was intelligent. Yeah. Fox, from Fallout 3, is certainly intelligent enough. And he, she, whatever gender they originally were, was a Vault 87 super mutant technically. So I don't think the FEV really limits intelligence too much. I think they just, probably as time goes on, maybe, but that's probably with continued exposure. Hmm. I assume that it would have to do with some result of the FEV. That something with the FEV probably eventually reduces intelligence. But you figure, how long does that really take? Like that could take years to do. Whereas you have a story that takes place in the span of months. You're not going to see that, in the story. It's going to be something that's going to take place years down the line. So also, again, you know, not being a pure allegory to Fallout, like again, you still have the effect of the equestrian makeup. Dog God, Dead Money. Oh, Fallout 4. I do not remember. Mm, yeah, I can't. It's been a while since I've played Fallout 4. In fact, I actually just started another run through the game not too long ago, simply because Fallout 76 kind of got me itching. But I haven't gotten that back far into it yet, so it's been a while. Yeah, probably. I just don't remember it. Tabitha. Yeah, yeah, I remember that. I don't either. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that part either. Is this Fallout 4 or New Vegas? It's been a while since I played New Vegas too. It has been a while. Oh, Jason Bright. Yeah. I don't know. Like they really don't know. You know, ghoulism. You know, there's really no cure for it really, and so they don't really know what causes their brains to just snap and become feral. So it's kind of one of those things where he may have just been able to hold on to his brains and his memory just because he had this goal, this thing he wanted to do. So yeah, I don't remember his name. I do remember that slightly. Nightkins were an offshoot branch of super mutants that were created by the Master, and they ended up getting addicted to using stealth boys, something about the chemicals or something that is released when using a stealth boy, especially when you use one without like an attachment like a pit boy. And so they were kind of crazed on it a little bit. I don't remember offhand. It's been a while. Like I said, it's been a while since I played New Vegas. I would have to say, Platinum Hayes from Heroes. Honestly, she's kind of the right kind of goofy and kind of hilarious. Yeah, I mean she's kind of cool, but I just again, it's one of those things not for me. Just couldn't really get into too much. Yeah, um, definitely. I definitely like alicorns. The one that I actually miss, uh, honestly, there was a story called New Beginnings, and for the love of me, I can't remember exactly the name of the character anymore, the main character anymore. But I really liked her as well because she was a fun alicorn. But that story didn't go anywhere; it didn't get completed. So, I mean, I am. So I play competitive Magic the Gathering. So I was doing a lot of that. I have done. I obviously I work. I do writing for a living, that sort of thing. But really, uh, yeah, prior to the Phantom, it was mostly just Magic. It's still just Magic, but it's kind of both. So, it's actually my wife, for the most part. My wife is an old school to her childhood of stuff from Generation One, and so she's always been kind of big into ponies, and so she said, "Hey, this is kind of neat. Like they created a new show, and I'm like watching this new show, and um, I was like, oh, okay." And we just kind of started watching it together and a little bit. And then it was the end of season one, beginning of season two. And really what struck me was the character of Discord. And they introduced Discord. And I was like, and the first moment he talked, I was like, I know this voice. And I was like, holy cow, it's cute. And my wife is like, what? And I'm like, have you ever seen Star Trek? And she goes, no. And I'm like, oh well, the guy that they got voicing this guy is played Q on Star Trek. She's like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, like it's Q. And then from there, I started watching. It was kind of funny. Like this is amusing, and uh, then all hell broke loose, and of course now we're, you know, big fans of it. So, and now I have a daughter, who's going to be 4 in October, and of course she loves it to death. That's like her favorite thing in existence is watching My Little Pony. So, it gives me kind of a good excuse to kind of watch it, but I've never been one of those people that is overt about what I like, but I am also not one of those people who hides what I like. So if people find out about it, like they're like, I'm like, yeah, I like this, and they're like, oh, and I just very nonchalant about it. And I'm like, yeah, I like it. What do you got to say about it? And they're like, I guess nothing. I'm like, okay then. Like, I'm not gonna push it in your face or nothing. I'm just gonna say, hey, I like this, and they're like, oh, okay. So, but then most people assume, oh, I like it because my daughter, and stuff like that. But it gives us some way between the two of us to connect a little bit. We gives us a little bit of a way to be on the same level, and she learns the lessons. And honest to God, you go watch through, the first couple seasons, and those are lessons that seem like they're, basic things, but at the same time, they're lessons that like adults, in this day and age should probably be learning. And stuff like, just being a good friend to people, and not being jealous of others, or like don't take on more than you can chew. That those kinds of lessons are things that adults in this day and age should spend more time looking at objectively, and learning, as opposed to just dismissing as, oh, it's just kid stuff. No, this is really smart, and they're telling it in such a way that they're trying to teach your kids how to be better people. And honestly, there's no other programming now that I would rather my daughter watch than watch My Little Pony, outside of some of the more things that I used to watch when I was a kid. Like she watches Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which used to be Mr. Rogers, and I'm a big fan of the Mr. Rogers' philosophy of life, because he spoke to kids like they were kids and like they were adults, and gave them the benefit of the doubt, and didn't dismiss them and didn't talk down to them. And that's, I think, where a lot of adults need to have that help. They need to understand that the stuff is helping teach their kids how to be better people. And not only that, they can benefit from learning the same thing too. It's seems like it's something super easy to learn. Hey, maybe you should be a good friend to your friend, but at the same time, a lot of adults don't get that, and they don't understand that, and they think they do, but when you really look at it, they don't. And so I always look at it as it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow and become a better person. Is basically the way I see it. I feel very strongly about that because, like I said, of there's a lot wrong in our world today, and it sucks to say that, but it's the way it is. And looking at it realistically, we can kind of dive our heads into the world of colorful equines, but at the same time, underneath that surface, there's something there that's helping people become better people. And being a part of the fandom has shown me that in a lot of ways. Just the sheer kindness of a lot of the people that I've met throughout the course of the thing. Like I said, all the people that subscribe, to my Patreon, who have helped me out through many times, and are donating money to me to be able to continue to do what I do, but also to give back to them, and bring them into the fold. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without those people. So we're learning how to be better people every day by just watching colorful equines on a TV screen. It seems weird, but we are. So yeah, oh yeah, yeah. In fact, we're caught up to last week, the mid-season hiatus, and anxiously waiting for more. So of this show, the, the she's she's already seen it. Nope. Yeah, yeah. She's fine with it. At some points it is. I know that they've made it more catered, not catered, but a little bit more geared towards being able to for people that are older to be able to watch it because they dance. But at the same time, like it's still a kid show, and they're still learning fun messages. And then there's episodes like this one where you're like, okay, that we get it. This is like a play on the evil twin scenario, and nobody really knows what's going on. And Fluttershy's upset because all the animals hate her because her mean one went and told all the animals they suck. And it's like, okay, so this is just a gag episode basically, and that's basically what it boils down to. Yeah, yeah, there's really nothing any worse than that than what you see in cartoons. So yeah, I remember that episode very well. Yep, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. That it's still that's a thing. Like FOE is kind of that is. Let's just put it. We basically just said that was a possible thing, and that's true with anything. I think so. Uh, you didn't need to see that. Yeah. What do you mean? Like the My Little Pony movie? I mean, like the only thing I really want to see right now that I see theaters is Deadpool, which I'm really sad about. But that's just because I've been out of town like pretty much every week. So like, yeah. I enjoyed Black Panther quite a bit. I've heard interesting things about that. Okay. Oh no, that's fine. You don't have to do that. E- Exodus, yep. Uh, Fallout 76. I'm waiting to hear a little bit more about how they're gonna handle the online portion of it. Simply because I generally play. Uh, I do own a PS4, and so I'm kind of like leery about the fact that they might require PS Plus network stuff crap to be able to play it. But if they don't end up having to have that, then I might be okay with it. We'll see. Yeah, I'm kind of excited for it just from the sheer fact that it's a Fallout game. I'm not as like everybody else where it's like, oh, it's multiplayer. No, I don't want that. Like, oh, no, I'm okay with that part. Like, that part doesn't bother me too much. It's Fallout. Like, who cares? Like, I'm gonna be okay with it no matter what. It's Fallout. But I'm also looking forward to The Last of Us 2. Hoping that they're gonna have a release date for that soon. I'm a big fan of the first game. Both my That looks very interesting too. I was just talking about that actually this evening with a friend of mine. That does look fairly interesting as well. So yeah, I don't know about that. We gonna be like super much longer? Because I do need to get going here in a little bit. Um, just curious, how much longer do you think it's gonna be? No, no. Oops, I didn't say anything. I did. I didn't say anything. Nothing. I was waiting on you. Gotcha. As far as Murky number seven, spoiler alert, he's a Pegasus. If you don't haven't figured that out by now, you didn't read any of the first like two chapters. But the real big thing to kind of like, I don't know, like there's not really like anything like super spoiler other than the fact that that like protege, doesn't make it throughout the story. But that's really about it. Heroes, um, shoot. There's a bomb inside of her. That's the best thing I can give you. That doesn't have any bearing on me at all. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I never really had that problem with it, but yeah, I mean, like that doesn't really have much bearing on me. I really only tend to kind of pay attention to my story, the stories that I've written on there, and that's really about it. So no, I just I don't have time to do anything else. So I do speaking quite a bit. I'm kind of used to it. Talking to people. Kind of a social person. It's just kind of rare in kind of like a lot of the things that I do. A lot of the, especially like you know pony fandom, but also like in like Magic as well. A lot of antisocial nerds, et cetera, et cetera. And not saying that in a bad way, but like a lot of people are kind of highly antisocial or just have social anxiety problems. And I'm like the complete opposite. I'm just like one of those guys. Hey, how's it going, man? How you doing? Just talk to people all the time, so it's just kind of the way I am. I would like to say that if this is going to be viewed in any sort of capacity, I am actually going to be at TrotCon this year again. I am running a panel on fan fiction writing and crossover universes there. So if any of your viewers or anything like that are going to be in the Columbus area for TrotCon, stop by and see my panel. I'll be there. So I was at I was at TrotCon last year. It was my first year going to my first, actually that was my first pony convention in general. And I was actually a guest of honor well, not guest of honor, but a community guest last year because last year's theme for TrotCon was post-apocalyptic Fallout kind of based theme. And so they brought me on as somebody that was an author of pieces of fiction to have a panel there about it. Yeah, yeah. Well, basically, what happened was the immediate moment that they put up an announcement that said, "Hey, we're doing post-apocalyptic this year." I emailed them instantly and said, "I write post-apocalyptic fan fiction. Would you like me to come?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure." And then I had applied for a panel, and I had a panel there at on Fallout Equestria side fiction. And we had a pretty good group for that panel, actually. It was like 30, 40 people in that room. So it was kind of neat. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead for it, man.